everyone, Brenda here with My Pastor's Wife Designs, and today I thought it would be really fun to show you a really pretty card actually. I know sometimes we hop on to find something super quick and easy and simple that we can make, but sometimes we want to do something special for someone. And I want to show you a card today that is just that. I had made a card for a good friend, and I'll show you hers. It's going in the mail tomorrow. And I thought, well, wouldn't that be fun to show you guys how to make a card like that? Now the one we're making is the same kind of layout, a few different colors, but you're going to get the idea. And while I'm at it, I'm just going to show you a few other cards that I made. Got to tell you, I am loving, it's one of my favorites in the annual catalog of the 2019-20 catalog, and it is the Free as a Bird stamp set. One of my all-time favorites. And the Bird Ballad DSP, designer series paper that goes with it, oh my gosh, I mean, there's so much to do with it. And then it pairs perfectly with the very Versailles stamp set. So I'm going to show you a card that, like I said, takes a little more time, but for that someone special that you want to just kind of make not a bunch of quick and easy cards, but just a really pretty designer card, this is the card for you. And I'm just going to give you a little sneak peek at that card. Isn't that pretty? So hang on to your hats and let's get started. All right, we're going to start with the supplies that you're going to need for this card. First, we have a piece of gray, and it is 8.5 by 6 1/4, and then scored at 4 1/4. Notice that it is a little bit bigger than your standard card. And then I have a piece of designer series paper. This is from our Bird Ballad suite, which is one of my favorites. It is 5 3/4 by 4 inches. And then we have a layer of designer series paper also, and it is just a little bit over, it is like 3 1/4 by 4 1/2, because I'm going to tear its edges down just a little bit. And then I have a piece of white, our Whisper White layer. It is 3 3/4 by 2 1/4. I have a piece of our Mossy Meadow, I believe, yes, Mossy Meadow, and it is 4 inches by 2 1/2 inches. And then I have a piece of the yellow, also from the designer series paper, and it is 1 1/4 inches by about 3 inches, and we're going to make a banner out of that using our triple banner punch, which is this one. Then we also have another piece of Whisper White that I have already taken the time to cut using the stitched, I think they're called the stitched nesting shapes. I'll look that up and make sure that's in the product list. I already took the time to cut it because you don't need to watch me run my die cut machine, but it's going to be this one, this size here. And its size is about 4 by 2 1/4 is the kind of size of piece of white you're going to need. And then one other piece of white, and I just had a piece of extra, like a little scrap, I guess I would call it, that is, I don't know, probably 5 1/2, yeah, 5 1/2 by, I don't know, 4 3/4 for our stamping. And then I also have a strip, just a scrap strip. I always have strips that I've saved, and I have a scrap here that we're going to be doing some stamping on as well. So I'm going to save all of our white pieces out here and our card base for a moment so that we can stamp. I've also got my Stamparatus just to make my stamping a little bit easier for me. And the stamp sets that we're going to be using is Always Thinking of You. No, that's a sentiment. Very Versailles. And then the Free as a Bird stamp set. And we'll be using several images from this set. I have a couple tricks that I want to share with you so that you'll have enough to make another card should you decide to. Inks that we're going to be using are the Memento Tuxedo Black, Gray Granite, Daffodil Delight, Mossy Meadow. We'll need some Stampin' Dimensionals and some of your favorite adhesive. Of course, you pick it up, pick your tool. Can't think of its name right now. I always name it something different than it should. I've got some of our seam binding ribbon, and it's the Crushed Curry. And then also some paper snips, my Stamparatus, and a few watercolor pencils and a blender pen. Yep, this card is kind of an involved card, but that's because it's a fancy card, and I wanted to show you how to do that because I had made a card similar to this one that we're going to make. Here's the one that I made, which will be our example, but this is the one that I made for a good friend for her birthday, and I'm going to make one similar but not exactly the same because we don't want two cards to always be just the same, but it is a more special card. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to pull my Stamparatus over here. I like to use my Stamparatus. It's just a little bit easier for me to use. And I'm going to focus on one color right this minute. I'm going to do it a color at a time. So I've got my Very Versailles set, and I have my, going to use this one here. I want to make sure, there we go. You guys can see what I am doing. All right, that is lined up way better. All right, so I'm going to just put my label, oh, I don't know. I want that one there, and I need this one to be stamped as well because I'd like to get as much of my stamping done at the same time as possible. So I'm going to put this word stamp from the Very Versailles set. I'm just going to kind of set that right there and lift it up, and then I'm going to use my other Stamparatus plate, and I'm going to get this one out of the also out of the Very Versailles, the leaves, and I'm going to set it on this paper here. Just going to kind of line that one up and see kind of how I want it. That's going to be good. Lift that off. Then, just going to angle it. You could use your magnets as well if you would like. I want to make sure my images get clear down, and so I'm not going to use the magnet this time. I am going to use my gray granite ink. I'm going to ink up both of my images, and this might be off camera, so I'm not sure you're going to be able to see what I'm doing. Let me just pull this off actually so you can see. So what I'm doing is inking up my images, and I'm doing that with the gray granite. And I'm just going to come down, give that a nice stamp, and that's what I wanted to have happen. I'm going to ink up my leaves and come down and just give this a nice press. The nice thing about the Stamparatus is if you don't get a good image the first time, you can restamp and go back over it. I like my image. I'm going to go ahead and pull this one off and set this aside, set this aside. I want to put my card base in here as well. And I'm going to put my card base, line it up just about there so I can see where my leaves are going to go. We'll use my magnet this time, re-ink these leaves. Again with the gray granite, come down and give this a nice press. I've got the inside of my card inked up, and then I can write my sentiment in here, or I can put a happy birthday or whatever. I'm going to come back in with my white strip, my little strip. I'm going to take this off. I'm going to pull out this Always Thinking of You. I want to line my paper up between some grids so I kind of have an idea of where I'm at. And I'm just going to eyeball this so you guys don't have my head in your path. Actually, I'm not going to eyeball it. I'm going to bring my Stamparatus plate over and make sure it's lined up with the grid line, which I'm going to take it off just a minute so I can see better because okay, I think that's lined up pretty good. We'll see when I stamp it, I guess. I'm going to ink this up again with the gray granite. While we have that color out, we might as well do all of our inking with that color that we intend to do, or our stamping. I'm going to come down, give it a nice press. I don't think that has enough ink on it. I want that to stand out a little bit more, so I am going to go ahead and just ink that up again and give it another press, and if it's going to line up perfectly because it's on the Stamparatus and it is darker and I like it like that. So I'm going to go ahead and close my gray granite and get it out of my way. I'm going to take this piece off because we're done with that. It's another stamped piece. Let's go ahead and get the Daffodil Delight, and you know what? I want to pull one more color in. I am going to grab my Pool Party and pull it in as well. Just because, again, this is a fancier card and it's okay to have a little bit more fancy things going on with it. And I think is what I want to do. I'm going to use those leaves again. So I really want to go for this layered look. So we're going to pull this piece that has our words on it, or the, you know, with the print. And this time I can put my magnet on, and I want to just kind of, I don't know, just maybe lay my leaves like so. And then I want to ink up my Pool Party. I'm going to use my Pool Party and ink that up. But before I stamp it, I'm going to find a piece of scrap. No, I'm not. I'm just going to come down right on my grid paper, stamp off once, then I'm going to put this back down and stamp again because I want it to be fairly light. So you can see what I did. I just didn't want this super dark that it would have been had I not stamped off. Now I'm going to move my magnet just down here, and I'm going to put this image right here. Tip my plate down, and this time I'm going to use the Daffodil Delight. And I'm not going to give it a hard press, just a light one. Perfect. Okay, and we are done with that image. And we're done with this piece. Now I want to bring in my bigger piece of scrap. We are going to be using several of the pieces. Like I said, and because you've already got this out, my theory is utilize your whole piece of paper and make some extra images that you can save for another project. And we're going to need to stamp a couple of these more than once. So I just kind of come in and fill in, and I put my pieces down where I know they're going to fit. And I know that I'm going to want at least 4 leaves. I've got scraps laying around, and I'm going to want several of these. But I'm also going to come in. Now, I'm not using this guy on this particular card, but what I did is the other day when I was making the one card, I went ahead and made some extra pieces, and this is the card I created because I had some extra pieces, and it didn't take long at all to create it. So that's why I kind of do what I do. So we're going to go ahead, and you see I left some space. That's so I can put my leaves down a second time. And I'm going to get out my tuxedo black this time. This is my favorite one to use. You could use Stays On as well. The reason I use these is because when I want to color with markers or with the markers or colored pencils, anything that might get wet, it won't bleed. I'm just going to give that a nice press. Make sure everybody got inked well. I think they need a little bit more, just a pop. Again, the beauty of using the Stamparatus is I can do this more than once and get a really nice image. Okay, that looks great. Now I'm going to pull off the ones I don't need for a second time. I'm going to put them over here on my stamp pad to clean. And I don't want that one again. And I really don't even need this big one, but if the big one will fit in a couple spots, I may go ahead and just put it in carefully. See See, that was not very careful. So don't disregard what I just said there. I mean, don't disregard it, don't do it. So I want to set this one here. There. And I want the leaves, and I want some more leaves, and I want some more flowers. I need a couple flowers. I need at least one more of the little flowers, and I need 1, 2, 3 more leaves. So let's go ahead and, well, let's put this guy here, and let's put this one here. And you can see where that inked a little bit because I don't think that stamp was quite dry, but it's all right because it's going to go right back where that spot was and you'll never know. And we're going to do that 2 more times with the leaves. Okay, you see how we have everything stamped now. I'm going to go ahead and move my Stamparatus. I don't know if you noticed my magnet here. I have duct tape around each end, around it and around each end. Part of the reason for that is it is easier for me to get it off the bottom because you can see where they fit, and it gives it a little handle. And sometimes if they stick together, I have better success pulling them apart. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and color these, and is what I want to do. This one can wait. I'll color it later. Again, it was just I wanted to have an extra piece. I might as well. I'm just going to start with my lighter green, and I believe this is Granny Apple Green. And I don't think you have to be really precise because we're going to blend them. And I'm not even going to color in totally fill it in because I'll use different colors and the blender pen helps just kind of fill that in. We're going to color all of our leaves. Then I've got some garden green. I just use a little bit whatever greens I have. Just I don't think it matters that much. And then my bird, I'm going to use Early Espresso. I have lots of little birds out in my bird feeders, and I could use any colors I wanted. I thought I would just kind of, I don't know, we'll just play with maybe like a meadowlark look. You can always add color. You really can't take color away. Some crushed curry. Yellow, or Daffodil Delight, or whatever it is. Come back and just kind of fill in places that I think need or look like they need a little bit more. So I'm going to use my blender pen and give him a little gray beak because I'm not sure what color beak those have. And then I'm going to add a little bit of gray just in to just add some dimension, a little bit of layering. And like you can see, I'm not being like super careful with my coloring. I want my flowers. Let's see, I'm going to start with the yellow. I'm just going to kind of lightly color them. Then I'm going to come back in with some Calypso Coral in the centers, kind of more in the centers, just to give it a little bit of color and dimension. It picks up some of the other colors in our designer series paper as well. And then back in with more yellow. I like to kind of come back in and go over the colors I've added because, like I said, it adds some layering and just builds depth. Then I will probably come in here too with a little bit of the crushed curry just for some, again, darker, a little bit darker edges in some of it. Just adds, again, some depth. And you can see, again, I'm not really being really precise, and I like to kind of go over like where it shows a little shadow line. I'll go over that with the darker color, just kind of gives my mind a place where to lay down the color. Then I'm going to grab my blender pen, and these are amazing tools. I think everybody should have blender pens if you've got watercolor crayons or watercolor pencils, because what it does is it just comes in and blends these colors together, softens it up just a little bit, and you can even like kind of go out of your lines a little bit for a watercolor look. You just don't have to be precise, which I kind of like to do because then I can kind of get my stem, which I didn't color, but I can add that color with my blender pen. And you just see how that is just blending my colors and giving it that added look that makes it look nice. I think that's what some people really struggle with pencils, is they can't get the look because they see all the lines and they can't figure out how to get rid of those lines. And the blender pen does that. And then just to clean it off, just scribble on your scrap paper for a moment. Then I'm going to come back in and blend these flowers. And then my little bird. You can see how that's moving the color around a little bit. All right, and everybody is colored. So now all you have to do is fussy cut those out, and you're just going to use a pair of snips or your favorite pair of small scissors. And like I said, you're just going to fussy cut these out. I have a couple of tricks I have for fussy cutting. I move my paper way more than I move my scissors because I'm going to get a nicer line. I'm not really worried about his feet on this one because they're going to be covered with layers. And honestly, I mean, if you have a scan and cut or something like that, you can certainly use that. And you can trim it as close or as far from this your image edge as you'd like. I always leave a little bit of a white edge because what that does is it gives me, it gives it dimension. All right, and there we have it. And through the magic of editing, you did not have to watch that entire process, which really honestly did not take that long. So now we are at the portion where we are going to start building our card. So let's get our card base, give it a nice press, and then we're going to get our pieces that we had cut. And the first thing I want to do, because I want this to have a little bit of a ratty edge, I'm actually going to take and break this down a little bit. Be careful. First time I did this, I actually tore my paper because I wasn't as careful as I wanted to be. And there's lots of ways you can break it down. You can use your bone folder. You can just kind of give it a squeeze with your hand. It just depends on what works best for you. Like I said, last time I did this, I tore my paper because I got a little zealous, but you can see where it's breaking down the fibers just a little bit. You don't have to do that, but I want it to have that little bit of a rougher edge for my collage feel. All right, and then I'm going to just take some snail, and I'm going to put a reasonable amount on, just because if you put this kind of work into a designer card, you want everything to stick and to stay in place. So we're going to go ahead and just do that, and I think I want to make sure my sprigs are running up. Line that up on the side there. Give it a nice press. If it curls up a little bit, that's okay. I want it to do that. Next, this piece. Now this piece is going to be a little trickier, and you may even want to, grab a pen that has water in it, which I'm going to do. I think this one actually has alcohol in it, but it doesn't matter. I just want to soak. I want to get my edges just a little bit wet for tearing. I'm just going to come around and just give it a little tear. And if you get it wet, it will tear easier. This edge a little wetter. The little bit wetter it is, the little bit easier it tears, obviously. I've got all of those edges torn, which is exactly what I wanted to do. Now I'm going to take and put this piece, and it is my Mossy Meadow. Again, I am a fan of adhesive. I do not want to mail a card that could fall apart. I would be mortified and sad because I put too much work into it. Just going to mount that on there. Then I'm going to do the same with this piece that we stamped. And you see I stamped something on the back of that and I'd made a mistake, but paper is two-sided, and when we use our two sides it just makes perfect sense. Now, I'm trying to think how I want to do this. You know what I'm going to do, and I should have done this before, but we can still do it. I'm going to lift the edge of this just a little bit because I meant to put some ribbon around it, and it's not that hard to lift your edge if you do it quickly. I'm going to use this one. Not sure how this is going to look, but we're going to go with it and be happy with the results. I'm just going to slide this under. Should have done that before and I didn't. I just forgot because that's how I am, but it's okay because it'll be right there. And slide that under, and I'm going to kind of leave that for a second because I want to start doing some layering here before we tie that ribbon. So then this piece is going to go right about there, and we'll just again use just our snail. And I want to put that kind of up here in this corner. All right, and then I want to take this piece, this is this banner piece, and get my banner punch out here. And I always like to slide it in so I can kind of see what I'm doing. And then I'll slide it clear to the end, give it a punch, put that in my garbage pile. And I'm going to just kind of line this up about right there. I wonder if that's too big. No, that's good. But we're going to slide it over just a touch. Yep, that's good. All right. It's always kind of good to eyeball your stuff. And you could use either side. I'm going to use the one with the little bird feet just because I am. All right, there we go. Now I'm going to take my ribbon, pull enough up that I have enough, and I always leave it on the spool because I find I have a lot less waste if I leave it on the spool while I'm tying my bow. You don't have to, you do what works for you. Again, like I said, you do you. All right. I just find that I have wasted a lot of ribbon over the years by pulling off some and then, you know, like having all this extra tail, which I just don't need to do. So, and I'll fuss with that in a minute. I'll give that a quick snip. Like I said, nothing's quick today. All right. Now I'm just going to leave that, and then I want to go ahead and build this for a moment. So I'm going to pull this over here, and I'm going to get all my pieces that we cut. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to run some snail. Well, I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to run some snail just along this back right edge, and I want to put my little flower down first on that snail. It'll adhere nicely. Then I want to put a leaf kind of behind it. Then I want to take another leaf and I want to weave that kind of in the front. See how I did that? So everybody's stuck on the back there, and then I just kind of wove that on. Yeah, we'll go ahead and put the little guy on here. So then the next thing we're going to do is put these leaves and this flower down, and I'm going to bring this in for a minute just so I don't get adhesive everywhere, because I'm famous for that. I want to put this about right there, and then again just putting adhesive on, and I want this one to go like that. Then I want my two little flowers. You could use glue dots as well, and I could have gotten mine out, but that seemed like not necessary. And then I'm going to put my little flowers in, I don't know, those two spaces. Then I'm going to put my little bird on, and I'm going to use some Stampin' Dimensionals for that, probably just 2 Stampin' Dimensionals. I always just like do my pick tool and take those backs off. It's just a little bit easier for me. And then I want to line him up about right there. I'm going to take another dimensional for the back of this flower and put it right over his feet. All right. Now we're going to put this, where do I want it? I'm going to get that caught and then I'm going to be upset. All right, I'm going to adjust my bow a little bit now that I kind of see the size I want. Give that a just going to give that a trim and that a trim, and you can mess with your bow however you want. I'm going to put some dimensionals on the back of this piece, and I'm going to be generous, and I always put 1 or 2 in the center because I hate when it goes like all concave. All right, everybody's got their sticky off of them. I'm going to line him up right. I want to line him up as close to that banner as possible because they're about the same size. Okay, there we go. And then we just, the final thing we have to do is put our words on here, and I'm going to trim this up. You can use your trimmer. I just, I like to stamp it first and then trim it out. All right, so we got that trimmed out. And again, I'm just going to use some dimensionals, but is what I'm going to do here actually. I'm going to run some snail across the top and then a couple of dimensionals just on its bottom edge because of the way it's going to line up. So I'm going to kind of hook that under, well, no I'm not, because I want that banner to show a little bit. I'm going to hook it under there. There we go. And then for the final thing, in this, I believe this kit, it's an embellishment kit. I believe I still see them on the clearance rack. And if they're not on the clearance rack, I think we have other little buttons and embellishments you can use. But I just want this pretty little flower embellishment to be right here at the top of my banner or my label. I'm going to just turn that. And there you have it. Isn't that a pretty little card? I am so tickled with this set, and I will have all the products at the end of this video for you if you'd like to try it. And you can also visit me at my blog, mypastorswifedesigns.com. Thank you so much for taking a little bit of your time today to watch this video on how you could create a really pretty and special card for one of your friends.